And all right, great. It's a rainy day here in Atlanta, and we're still here. We're repping at B Camp. Really excited to be here. I want to thank the B Suite team, Tyree and Dickie, and some other folks I've met so far. Looks like an awesome event. Really quickly, I am John Sook. I am the Vice President of our Business Advisory Services for Portalus. And I'm going to get into a little bit more about who Portalus is. Our president, April House, is one of the hosts. She was unable to be here in person, but I know she's definitely here with us in spirit. So we're really excited to be here. Today, I'm going to give a little overview about retirement, how to use it as a recruiting tool here in this environment, working with different companies, those who have companies who are thinking about it, why it is so important for your success, not just in having a retirement plan, but also a plan to help you with recruiting. I'm going to talk a little bit overview about our benefits, corporate responsibility, as well as our specific workforce solutions that Portalus offers. First, I want to talk a little bit about just the power of it. One of the things that's so critical is that companies are saying that offering a comprehensive benefits package, people are 80% more likely to attract and retain top talent. I live in Washington and work with startups all the time in Seattle. It's a pretty strong startup community there. And we also work with a lot of other tech associations across the country, no matter where it is, Chicago, Boston, Kansas City, Tampa Bay, Portland. And largely, they're telling us the same things. I actually spoke to a group of 60 tech CEOs in Kansas City a couple of years ago, and they see the same challenges, right? They're competing with Amazon, they're competing with Meta, they're competing with all these companies for top talent in different markets. And obviously, since the global pandemic, people have a lot more flexibility. They don't have to live in San Francisco. They're not required to live in Seattle. I mean, I'll tell you right now, I live in Seattle, and people used to live really close to Redmond or downtown Seattle. Now they live like 2 hours away because they can, right? And they go in just a couple days a week, and they'll live in a much more remote area, and they can have a bigger place and closer to the mountains or whatever they want to do. But again, bottom line is these packages are really important. So obviously, health programs, and this is a little bit of a plug for Portalus, for ourselves. We are a workforce solutions company, and we do offer all of these things: health programs, dental and vision, life insurance, 401k program, right? But to make sure you have those are so important, because if you're trying to recruit somebody from a bigger company that has a lot of these kind of benefits, it's almost kind of a non-negotiable. They need that, right? They need that for themselves if they're a single, worker, or if they have a family. But I also want to stress too that it's not as expensive as you might think. A lot of people think, oh, I can't afford it. I'll do it later when I have more money or I've raised more money. You just saw a great panel giving some great advice about, how to, make your pitch to VCs, what's the right way. And obviously, if there's companies in that stage, that's what they're doing. But we also want to make sure that you can set yourself apart. And working with companies like Portalus, doesn't have to be Portalus. There's other companies that offer services like that. I definitely want to make sure that you understand that they are important and they're more affordable than you think. You just have to do a little homework. So one of the things that, again, I wanted to pull out a lot of statistics to make sure we're on track, is that 63% of job seekers consider recruiting, retention, also just having an enrichment, type of experience, right? I mean, obviously, it's great if a company offers food and drink and Um, you have this total package. I mean, a lot of companies, including ourselves, we talked about the total value you're getting, right? They remind you, like, hey, they'll send out this total value, like your salary's this, and you get these benefits, and your whole experience of what you get for working for us is X. And you're like, oh wow, obviously it's a little bit more than your salary, but that is really an important factor to consider when people are looking at, and obviously job seekers are doing the same. As it relates to corporate responsibility, also having a retirement plan is critical, um, along with the other things that we do. There's so many great things. We have an awesome um, DE&I officer named Yolanda Chase. Um, have you guys met her? Oh yeah. I mean, she's like a globally recognized leader in DE&I, and we're so fortunate to have her. And we have these great programs. We feel a little spoiled because she's such an expert. She's going to other companies. We just announced a huge partnership with DeVry Institute. So we're very proud of her and her team and what they're doing, and we live that all the time in our organization. But in addition to that is, making sure that you're giving back to your community. That's a big part of what we do at the WTIA. We're our mission-driven company to support the tech industry, but also volunteering. We do match for donations. I think that's awesome, and I'm sure lots of other companies are doing the same. DEI, as I mentioned, and even in our 401k portfolio that we have six environmental and social responsible funds in it that also have diversity elements to it, whether they're leaders that are manning these funds, or they're making sure they're conscious of the environment. That they're zero emissions companies. They're not. There's some of the funds that are in there are not necessarily oil companies, right? They're clean tech companies. They're companies that of that sense. So I think that all lends back to social responsibility and how it all ties in. So this is kind of an interesting picture, right? Like, who is this guy? Anybody want to guess who this guy is? I know. Well, I was just joking, but I was thinking to myself as I put this slide, I was like, maybe people will think he's the original Marlboro Man, right? Yeah. I mean, it'd be amazing if a guy that smoked that much is still alive, because this picture was taken a couple years ago, and I hope this gentleman is still living. But um, he got some national attention. What was that? Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, maybe, right? I mean, some of these guys, like here, I live in Costco land, right, in Seattle, and I know the executives, like, there's a store like a couple blocks from corporate headquarters, and they go there all the time. But anyways, this gentleman, I don't know his name, and that's not really the important part of the story. Is that he works at Walmart, right? And it is not Sam Walton, but and he works like 6 days a week, 8 or 10 hour shifts, and he's been working there for like, I don't know, 40 years. And one of his coworkers, much younger, talked to him and said, "Wow, let's just call him George. George, that's really great that you've been working so hard. You work so many hours, and you're so dedicated. And are you going to retire soon?" And he said, "I can't, because I don't have any money saved for retirement. I'm like supporting my family and my extended family, and you know, and this coworker who was probably much younger, in their 20s or 30s, felt really bad for George because he couldn't retire. So he or she started a GoFundMe on behalf of their coworker. See, it was on the Today Show. It was like national news. It got viral, and because of that GoFundMe in days, which we love that, right? When a good cause and people rally around that for a stranger, they raised like $150,000 for George. I'm not saying he could retire on that, but guess what? That's double than the average retirement that an American has today, which is $65,000, right? The average American, regardless of age, has $65,000 saved for retirement, which is oddly enough, I looked up what the average salary is right now in the United States. It's 59,000, right? Which obviously less taxes and all this is much less. But the average American doesn't even have enough money to live on for 1 year, right? And this guy has 150, and I hope it's grown, but I think you guys understand my point. We can't be this lucky and expect people to have a GoFundMe for our retirement, right? And that's really my point. I think everyone gets that. So real quick, how many people do have a 401k program right now with their company? Do not, right? So we have some that do and some that don't here in the audience. Okay, right. So another stat is that 43% of black families and 38% of Hispanic families have no retirement savings compared to 27% of white families, right? Regardless, retirement, sees no color, right? I just mentioned the average, and really doesn't matter with age, right? Even those who are close to retirement age, like in the 50s, their average retirement's like 100,000. So it's not much more, and they're so much closer to needing to get to retirement. So those who are 50 and 60 are probably going to work much longer. I don't want to get in this whole lecture, but part of it is because, interestingly enough, years ago in America, we painted this dream of, and then retire after working for 30 years for one company, and then you can move to Florida and live in a condo, and right? Whereas people in the rest of the world usually work till they die, right or wrong, good or bad. And I know a lot of people, my father-in-law included, who's a financial planner, he will work till his last dying breath because he loves it. And I'm so happy for him that he can continue to work in a job that he's passionate about. And that's what I used to see in these examples when I would dig into other parts of the world. A lot of people work forever because then they start working really for their family. They work because they still have worth in their villages, in their communities, in their towns, right? My wife just told me about this story in Japan where this village, everyone has a job in this village where someone's the baker, someone's the fisherman, someone is the, seamstress, right? And they live this amazing coexistent life. My wife's like, I want to move there. She's like, but it sounds so great. But here in America, people feel like, if I can't retire at 60, am I doing something wrong? Did I not do anything? And I'm not saying that shouldn't be the dream. If you want to retire and you can at 60, hey, more power to you. But I want people to just be able to have enough retirement to take care of themselves, to take care of their medical bills. I want people to be able to do the things they can do, right? So I find a lot of gratitude in trying to help companies find retirement plans, and helping people realize their dream of this opportunity. Like I said, here's just another stat real quick. This is how much baby boomers have saved. Gen X have saved about an average 165, millennials about 71, and Gen Z, this number is probably about 18,000, right? So it's not that much, right? We were just talking about that, right? This is me, right? Gen X, 165,000. This is not much, right? It's not much more than our friend George. So again, now I want to get back to why it's so important, and that why it is possible, right? When you talk to new staff or potential people that you want to bring on board, you have this advantage. Wait, we have a 401k program. Whether you match or don't match, right? It's going to be important because now they say, I was working at Amazon or Microsoft. I can just take my money that I've saved here and put it into a plan. Great, right? That's also good. they feel like there could be some security, like they can save tax-free, right? Or a Roth option, which is something where you can pay the tax now. So when you take that money out, you can use it right away and you've already paid the taxes on it. Um, and then some companies we serve, and we've served over 75 companies in our program. Some have left because they got acquired and that new company has a plan. And some companies, sadly, because they disbanded and went out of business. But for the most part, all of our clients that have stayed with us, um, and the ones that even have left, were only for those two reasons. But keeping your talent, those who have had companies, look, some of these founders who are here today, right? It's maybe two college classmates, or a brother and a sister, or right best friends, or three or four of you, and you say, "Oh, yeah, let's start it." Okay, right? Because we're all friends, we'll all sacrifice, right? We'll all put our money in, we'll put our time in. But then once you start hiring that first employee who's not in your little friend group, right? They're not going to live with the same thing you guys have lived with, right? You're accepting the fact like we can live without this or that, but you have to hire that engineer, that coding, person, and they're going to want benefits, right? So that's going to be important. And when you might even be able to attract a few people, but once you bring it, now you'll be able to maybe keep that person because they won't leave you because you don't have one. And then this is so important. This intergenerational wealth. God, we're so big on it. We're measuring that in Seattle. We're seeing that. We have a little plug for our other group, Apprenti, which is an apprenticeship program that we help those who aren't in tech to get it, kind of fast track into it quickly. We use this number, like usually they're like the first person to get a job in tech or get a job that's paying over $100,000. And sometimes they're not even, they didn't even complete college, right? But we see that and we've calculated those numbers. It's so rewarding to see that. And then lastly, financial education. This, like for us, we offer that as part of our program. So anybody who's in our program, any employee, any of these 2,000 people who participate in our program, look, my oldest son is 25, right? He's just learning. He's a data analyst, but he doesn't really know that much about investing. He could call anybody if he was in our program and say, well, I'd like to talk to someone, because they might not have a financial planner because they don't have enough money to really justify having a financial planner. But that person in our program can offer that kind of planning for you, then start talking to like, oh, I want to get married. Now the plan might change. Oh, I had a kid. Now the plan might change. Now I'm in my 40s. I want to save for my children's college, right? Our program is so important, especially to those in tech, because most tech people are not finance experts, or else they would have been in finance, right? So having financial education is also a big key. There's a lot of different programs out there. And I know just this small sample size here, some folks had a program, some folks don't. There's different types, and we don't really care. We want people just to be educated and know, look, there are different types of plans out there that you can get started. You could really get started on the internet by just typing in like 401k plan, do some work, and bam, you have a 401k plan, right? Now, you're kind of going to get what you pay for, right? If you do it online, and you're probably not going to get a lot of customer service. You won't get that financial education, but you can still do it. And there's ways to do it. There are IRAs that are much more simple. They're more for like one person or two people max. The traditional 401ks, like the programs we offer, they can be solo, they can be Roth, they can be traditional. And then the type of funds that they offer. Usually the kind of I don't know what you want to call it, the grab and go, like the one I explained to you, like if you go online, you're going to get a limited amount of funds that are going to be offered. Obviously, a big company is going to offer like the gambit, right? Everything, like every fund you could possibly imagine, and you could choose from it. But the most important thing is you want to make sure the fund is making some money for you, right? I talked a little bit about social responsible. That's great. And then these target date funds is one other thing. This is kind of set it and forget it kind of fund, which is if I say, oh, I'm going to retire in 2030, right? Then I could put it in a target date fund that says 2030, and it'll automatically make investments starting now for what that should be for the next 7 years. Versus someone else in this room might say, oh, I'm going to retire 2050, right? That plan is going to look largely different than mine because I'm a 7-year plan out. That other person's more like 27 years out, right? So they're going to do it a little bit differently. But again, great options that are out there. All plans are usually offering things like that. One other plug, I didn't have it in my presentation, but before I kind of wrap with the Portalus overview, is that the other thing I think people should know, and those on the live stream too, is that there are a lot of programs. It's kind of like I have my youngest son just went off to college as a freshman. My other 2 sons have already graduated. And I'll use that just as a lead-in, is that everyone always says, and the high schools say it, and your friends in your neighborhood, and you have friends who have kids in college say, oh, go online and find some scholarships, right? Because there's scholarships all over the place. See, she knows what I'm talking about. It's funny. And even my wife was just hammering my youngest son, like, even though we had 2 sons that were already in college and we already went through this, she kind of said the same thing. Jack, go online and look for scholarships, right? They're all over the place. There's just millions of dollars that people are just waiting to give away. It's like, Mom, have you done it? Right? You're just saying it, right? It's hard, right? It's like trying to find needle in a haystack, right? It's difficult. Yes, it's true. They're out there, but there's no like portal. There's no scholarship.com out there you can just go to and apply. Like, my name is John Sook. I'm this, I'm that. I'm applying to these schools. No, it's hard. It's the same thing for 401ks. Like, a lot of people think, oh, I don't know how to do it. It might be difficult if I'm a business owner. The one plug I want to make is that the federal government a few years ago started this program under the Trump administration, but it was right before COVID. So kind of a lot of people didn't pay attention to it. It was actually a really good program. It's called the Secure Act. Has anyone even heard of it? I'll be honest, I didn't hear of it. When COVID hit, I'm like, what? Like, it just, all hell broke loose, right? Everyone lost their minds. But they did launch this initiative called the Secure Act 1.0. And basically, it was a federal program to help small businesses get going. And all it was full of great programs that the federal government was offering to help small businesses either get started, or if you are already a small business, how do you get more breaks, right? Tax breaks, things were free, things were, heavily discounted. And then under the Biden administration, they just launched at the end of last year, and they're still continue to improve it, Secure Act 2.0, right? And again, it was like now they've continued to enhance all these things. And the reason I'm bringing it up is because it's a federal program. And as it applies to the 401k program, they're giving you up to $5,000 a year in tax breaks for the next 5 years, right? So if somebody here wanted to start a 401k program today, not just with us, but with anybody, as a new business, they're eligible to write off $5,000 every year for the next 5 years. Our program base is $4,500. So basically, to start a 401k program for your employees is literally free, right? And our corporate attorney says I shouldn't say that, right? But right. But what I mean by free is that obviously, now I'll put in my disclaimer, Eileen, if you're listening, is that you have to consult your tax advisor, right? Because you, the company, have to go and apply for that. You still would, in this scenario, pay us $4,500 for the program, and then you would go apply for this. But the greatest thing is you can have that for the next 5 years. That's $25,000 that you can save. On top of that, they also provide a tax write-off if you match. So if you match your employees' 401k 4%, and you have like, I don't know, 5 employees, 10 employees, and you match their contributions to the tune of maybe $20,000, you can write that off too, which is awesome. So, there's all kinds of things that are out there, and I'm only offering myself as a resource as part of the Washington Technology Industry Association. Even though I work for Portalus, which is our for-profit division, we are still very mission driven in the sense that we're here to help our clients in the technology space get on, have successful launches with their business. That's really the driver. Yeah, we make some money too, right? We make money on our health plan, but we make money in this program to help fund the mission-driven efforts, right? But we're not that cutthroat that we're like, oh, you got to have this program and we're going to hard sell you. Listen, I've told at least 10 companies that I've talked to in the last year, our program is not the right one for you. You only have one staff member. This is where you are. I think you should go do this instead. And somebody wrote back to our blog about that experience. They couldn't believe that we actually told them, even though they were like willing to join our program, we told them a different option would be better for them. They were so appreciative of it, but that's kind of our point with what I'm trying to say. For 12 years. We just had a much more mundane name of our company. We were called, wait for it, HR Benefits Incorporated. Wow. But anyways, now we're Portalus. Woo! Right? So anyways, I know it's not that exciting. We tried to make it cool. We called it Herbie. But anyways, it's now Portalus. But to be honest, this has been the driver for what we've been doing. And these are the new things that we're offering. Well, we've been offering commercial insurance for a while, but also consulting and payroll. We do a lot of the work, early on with companies, pro bono, until you decide like, hey, I really want to do it and get you into a program. So really, those of you on the live stream, those of you who are here, I'll be around, just contact me or pull me aside if you want to have more conversation, or grab a business card from me and we can connect later. But we're helping companies across the country, right? Yes, I flew here from Seattle. Yes, I love coming to Atlanta. No, I did not bring the rain, so don't put that on me, okay? I only bring mist. I don't bring thunderstorms, right? But I'm really happy to be here. The last thing I'll say is that, about our program specifically, these are just the, quick bullets. We built this program for tech companies. We made it like crazy simple. All of our applications are like 2 pages. We have $65 million in assets under management. Our program basically grew from like 0 to like, as I said, 75 we've served. Currently, we have about 50 in the program now, 50 companies that is, and serving almost 2,000 employees in it. And we have companies across 10 states in our program now. Our Q2 performance was better than the S&P, and our Q1 was better than the S&P as well. So we plugged that. And then, like I said, we have the buying power of $65 million that allows everyone to benefit from large company funds. We do these things, it's kind of boring, but it's something called fund mapping. So a company says, oh, I have this 401k and here's all the funds I have. They want to see how it matches up against ours. So we put them side by side and like, oh, well, like 90% of the funds you guys offer, plus you offer more. The other thing is that because we have these funds and so much money in our program, we can offer the same funds at a lower expense ratio. So it's kind of like if you went to the grocery store to buy, I don't know, a box of cereal and you paid $5, and then you went to Costco and you bought 10 of those and you got them for basically $3 a piece. You're like, whoa, right? He got a better deal, but he bought more. We have more, right? That's why you guys could both have the same fund, like some, Vanguard target date global fund, and the fund performed and made like 8%. Great. You had $100 in it, right? So you made $8, right? But yet the fund fee, the expense, it's like you made $8 less what you have to pay in the fee. Maybe you paid three, maybe he paid one, right? So he actually made $7, you only made five. So that's kind of my quick math on that. So we're really excited that we have built a program that people can all benefit from. And that's all I have. Thank you very much for listening. I really appreciate it. It was super fun. Yay. Any questions about what I talked about just in general, about Portalus, retirement, anything? Oh, yes. Okay. You know what? Since I think we have a little bit of time, I can actually go into it. So this is our site, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to find an example real time. That was me. Scroll right by that and show you exactly what it is. So I think it'll be a nice visual that everyone can see. Great question. It is exactly one. The IRS requirements are for a 401k program, exactly one full-time employee. That's all you need. We actually have a few companies that have one with the anticipation because it's usually the founder, right? They know they're going to staff up and hire. But if there's an organization, and sometimes there are, that it's like almost like a sole proprietor. They said it's just only going to be me, right? We might steer them in a different direction, right? But you can start a plan with as minimum as one employee. So here's the example, if I can scroll down to it. Okay, perfect. So here is um, a target date fund. So this, I went through all, these are all our, right. So it's geared on the year, right? So someone that's going to retire in 25, 2020, 2030, 2035, they're going to, and it doesn't, like, there's not a drop down for what is in here, but basically it's like using my son's example, right? He's 25. He should be investing his retirement dollars into something much more aggressive, right? Risky, right? Buying more stock in companies that are up and coming versus me in this scenario, 2030, right? I've already went super risky, then kind of conservative as I've kind of saved for my children's, college funds. And then now I'm going to retire, so I'm kind of going to go into something more stable and less risky, right? That's really it. It's just has created this time curve automatically based on when you're going to retire. Does that make sense? Sure. Great. Mhm. Yeah, no, it's fine. Absolutely understand your question. So, if for those on the live stream that couldn't hear it, the question was, how does the fund know, like, to invest more aggressively early on and then start to level out and then become more conservative? It's really, based on, this financial software that our fiduciary and the person that we call that's responsible and like governed by a board is our 338. That's a financial designation, kind of like someone with a Series 7 is certified to trade stocks or securities. So someone with a 338 designation has a responsibility to make sure that these are being done. Obviously, they can't like watch every single person's. So once you lock into this fund, then you're locked in through a software system that's going to automatically trade those portfolios, but they're still watching it as a whole. So they're looking at like everybody's money in this target date fund. Is it still performing? What slight tweaks do they need to make? But basically, it's done via software, right? There's an algorithm that will calculate that as being calculated and evaluated. No, that's okay. Yeah, no, no problem, right? And so obviously, with the market not being great right now, you could even look at some of these funds like 2030 and 2035, right? Most of them in the 1 year return have not been great, but in the 3, 5, and 10 year, continue to perform well, like even into the, 7% range. So, that's exactly what that is. So a lot of people are in it, and that's why in my presentation I mentioned that a lot of people choose to go to a target date fund because it's easy to evaluate and it causes less stress. Like you're not worrying about it every day. Like my brother-in-law, he's always like looking at his 401k and like switching stuff around every day. It's like, right? I mean, we have enough stress in our lives, right? Question. Yeah. So the question was, my thoughts and trends on ESG. I will say as a whole, and I'm not, a financial expert, that's not my role with this program, is that I think there are some limitations with some ESG funds because they're very finite into what they can do. But I think that kind of also lends to the reason why we added 6 ESG funds to our portfolio is because it speaks to what I said earlier as it relates to corporate responsibility. I feel in general, and I think many of you do too, that those in the tech industry are very socially responsible. They care about the environment. They care about, you know, diversity, equity, and inclusion, right? They're conscious of it, right? And so we had a lot of demand to add ESG funds. Our experts, the way that the fiduciary, our 338, he said, listen, some of them aren't really, tearing it up right now. They've had a lot of challenges, right? So in terms of overall performance, putting all your money in the ESG fund, probably not the best thing right now because it's not really performing as a whole. But I think it's a long-term play, and I think it's a long-term play for all the right reasons. So that's my general opinion on ESG right now. Right? Yes, that's right. Right. Excellent. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. I want to again thank B Suite and B Camp and all the people over here. And I hope you have a great rest of the conference. Thank you.